Hey guys, it's COREROSS and welcome to Busting Rainbow Six Siege. Today we are myth-busting Denari, the brand new operator in Rainbow Six Siege from Switzerland. And this operator is fascinating. So they have a laser-based gadget, kind of like you have on a Rooney, but just done in an entirely different way. So first of all, the basics. He can put down projectors and these devices connect to each other with a visible laser beam. And these beams will switch off for defenders when they run through the lasers. And then if the attackers move through, they will take 20 damage per laser. The laser then switches off, the beam disappears, and it resets in 4 seconds. And alongside the damage the attacker takes, they also get slowed for 8 seconds. The lasers also have a max range of 20 meters, so if the projector has line of sight but is over 20 meters, it will not connect with a laser. And each projector can connect to multiple other projectors, resulting in eventually a web of lasers in the location where these are set up. Oh yeah, and they can also be put outside as well. So let's start by testing one of my personal myths here, and the one that I talked about when this guy was initially revealed, and that was that I thought he'd get some sort of nerf during the test server phase before he hit live. However, things did not go as expected. Instead, he was actually just broken, and I don't mean it in an OP way. You would throw out a second laser and it would crash your game back to desktop, and he was just unplayable on the test server for the majority of the time it was up. And that's why this Mythbuster episode is out later than usual. And I can confirm that indeed he has been nerfed on day 1. So what has actually happened is the recharge time for the lasers has been doubled, going from 4 seconds to 8. Already putting my intro to this video out of date. But it confirms that he has already been nerfed. Now the good thing is, I think this is the best nerf they could have gone for, and it doesn't make him like too weak or anything like that. It's just a bit more forgiving if a attacker really gets into trouble with these lasers. And for more experienced players, I don't think it will really be too much of a factor either way. So let's get on to the first myths and tests. And the first thing is basically, this gadget does a little bit of everything. For instance, if the attacker drones come in contact with the lasers, they will be vaporized. And a good example of this is being able to seal off certain drone holes so that not even a Twitch drone or something that can destroy the laser emitters can actually get past, because they can't visually get to the emitter, making him actually a surprisingly good counter-intel operator. His lasers will also vaporize projectiles as well, like Ash's breaching charge or frag grenades, flashbangs, things like that, if they come in contact with the laser. Now thankfully there is a lot of counters to this new gadget. So first of all, because they're electronic, you can EMP them, either with Thatcher or an impact EMP. But do remember, these gadgets can be 20 meters apart from each other, so if well placed by the defender, they can be quite hard to deal with at times, especially with the impact EMP, as its detonation radius is quite small. But if you want, you can also go for a simple classic like explosives. So frag grenades are a good option. Remember though that if they interact with the lasers, the frag grenade gets vaporized, and operators like Flores here are going to be brilliant. And then of course, if you can see the projector, you can simply shoot it. So that's the basics out of the way. Let's start getting more complicated. And of course, one of the things I love about this gadget the most is its versatility. The ability to place these things anywhere, even outside, is kind of insane. But what I want to talk about is placing them in positions where they don't have a visible laser because they're not actually physically connected, but in some way they will then be connected by an action that is done by a defender, whether something that's set up to happen or done by a player. And I've got 2 examples to give you. The first one is a Kapkan trap. It's actually quite a large physical thing, so you can use it to block the lasers. Now this means that in the right location, you can have the emitters outside of the explosive range, so that when someone walks through, they take the damage from the Kapkan trap, and the lasers instantly connect, also dealing damage to the attacker as well, resulting in the usual Kapkan damage plus the laser damage. And you've also got the bonus of when the Kapkan gets spotted and destroyed, the lasers then connect up, and it's another thing that the attacker has to figure out how to get around. And then the other way to break the connection to have no visible lasers to warn the attackers is to simply use a player, and the best one for this is Clash. So what you can do is set up a trap so that when the attackers enter, they think they're doing a one-on-one with Clash, decide to rush her, try and take her down, but of course Clash just simply moves activates the lasers and they get cut into small cubes. This is a really good way to mess with the attackers using Clash and this new operator as a nice combo. And I think any of the successful tactics that people come up with this guy are going to be based around two-stage setups where you initially set the lasers up, they're not visible, they're not connected, something is in the way, a deployable shield, a castle, a barricade, something, and then as soon as the attackers attack, break down the barricades, break down reinforced walls, then all of a sudden lasers start connecting, and then you've got a very interesting potential setup going that could actually be viable. Now I see this new operator as not having really a proper direct counter now. You can argue that actually he does, so Twitch and stuff like that is actually very good at countering him. But I feel like there's actually one that should counter this operator directly, and that is actually Sens, who of course actually doesn't have an operator that they directly counter, and I think this is the perfect example because of course Sens makes these laser walls that obscures all vision, so they should be perfect at blocking light and stopping the lasers. And I feel like if Sen's laser walls don't someday block these lasers, it's going to be a missed opportunity. And also in the same vein, we can test other things that obscure visibility, like for instance, smoke grenades, which block all visibility, and in theory, they should be able to block the lasers, but unfortunately, they do not. And this is unfortunate. It'd be quite cool if you droned in, you seen a whole bunch of lasers underneath, say, a window, and you wanted to vault in, and you actually just threw a smoke grenade in as your way of obscuring the lasers, then jump in safely. That'd be kind of cool. It'd be a very different way to use a smoke grenade, and I would love that interaction to somehow show up in the future if possible. I should also bring up here that Yana is quite a good counter as well. You might not think of her straight away compared to, say, Twitch, but actually Yana is great because her ability is a full-size body, so she can run into as many lasers as she wants and disable them. It will of course destroy her hologram in the process, but the great thing that works to her advantage is the nerf that he's been given. Because they now take 8 seconds to recharge, it is more than enough time to then move through without any trouble, making her an already good counter, but with the nerf I think an even better one. Now we have a myth that I think is awesome, and it's just simply the fact that you can make the smallest insta-kill trap in the game with this guy. Now I don't know if it's a good tactic, but it's certainly possible. So you can of course put these lasers in a very compact space, you can play with the arrangement of them and the setup of them, and you can attempt to make them lethal if someone jumps in. The big problem of course here is that this will use up most of your lasers, so really it's probably not worth it. You're probably best spreading them out over different areas. However, it is totally capable of creating a lethal trap with them. And I do expect over the next month we're going to see a lot of tips and tricks videos showing how best to arrange these for maximum damage and the best locations where they can go. Tagging onto this, we'll also talk to the fact you can put these outside. So the idea as well, there might be some maps where you can place these in just locations you would not expect, and an attacker will vault over onto them or stuff like that outside the map and get eliminated. And this is all very possible, and we'll have to see what kind of tactics people come up with as time goes on, because I think we've only just scratched the surface, especially with him being broken during a test server. Everyone for the most part is going in very much blind with the launch of the new season. Now a little PSA for OSA players, you might be tempted at times to cut off the lasers with the shield, and it will work. Even though the shield is transparent, the lasers will not go through. However, be noted that as soon as you pick the shield back up, if the lasers are still there, they'll insta-connect and fry you, even if your body isn't actually intersecting with the laser. And it's odd because if you put the shield down, you don't get fried, even though you cut the lasers, but then as soon as you pick it up, you get fried. So it's just a bit of an issue. Maybe it's a bug, but watch out for that as an OSA player. Another operator that should be worried is that of Amaru. So I notice a lot of Amaru players will go through the same window every single round, and I would usually maybe pick like Frost, go throw a floss mat down or something, or just intercept them at the window. But now I can throw lasers at them. So watch out as an Amaru player, because you really want to make sure there's no lasers waiting on the other side of a window for you when you fly on through, because of course it could end up with you getting sliced up on the way in. And then another concern is that of shield operators. So if you're a shield operator, you pretty much just do not want to touch the red lasers, because they will initiate a shield break and of course make you extremely vulnerable to being taken out. Now let's talk about effective counters. Let's say in the future these Denari setups are getting real complex and are starting to be annoying. Who is your best bet to try and deal with them? So Twitch is one of the best. Simple, easy, can come in and absolutely mess up a Denari setup in seconds. However, if the defenders are bringing Mute and Mozzie and stuff like that and really being a pain with your drones, then another great option is Zero. His cameras can easily destroy the lasers and can bypass a lot of countermeasures. However, I would not recommend using Brava. If you have a more useful hack you can do, I would think it'd be better used on an actual device you can control rather than Brava, who will just simply overheat and destroy the lasers rather than take them over. And I personally just think that's a wasted hacking opportunity. And then of course you've always got IQ as well, who is always just a good handy counter to any electronic gadget, as you can figure out where they are and either just completely bypass them or alert her team so they can be eliminated. Now, one thing I've seen a lot of buzz about was putting lasers on staircases, and this seemed like it was going to potentially be a bad thing because you couldn't see them, and the potential for destroying drones, hurting players was very bad. And I was like, oh, this could actually be the issue that Denari launches with. However, thankfully, I went in and I tested out a bunch of different setups on stairs, and as far as my testing has gone so far, these lasers are invisible when you're coming down the stairs. However, the great thing is, both drones and players just go straight over them without interacting with them. The only time I ever got a player to interact, even when putting them at the very front of the step, was when they were going up the stairs, which is fine because of course you'll see them and shoot them. And I was wondering if this would end up being an issue, but it looks like it's actually busted, and as far as I can tell, you can't really use it for this setup. However, maybe there's a certain stair design on other maps where this is viable, but right now it doesn't seem to be an issue for me. And that brings us to the conclusion. So first of all, I think we're just scratching the surface on what this dude can do and the setups that can be created. And I can't wait to see how people play this operator, and I expect this operator to be played very badly to begin with. And then as strategies are figured out, I expect things to get much more interesting. What I will say is bring verticality to your laser setups. Because of the range on this thing, you can easily have stuff below and above connected, making things far more interesting than just doing horizontal lines or stuff like that. But anyway guys, let me know what you think about the brand new operator in the comments below, and I'll catch you next time.